Hey guys, this is episode 28. I'm Dr. Marianne Shiozawa, and this is the You're Doing Great Mom podcast. This is the third episode speaking to men about fatherhood, relationships, and kids, and pretty much anything in between. Today, I'm talking to a colleague of mine who I met at a seminar in Italy about a year ago, Craig Peterson. Craig is an American. He's living in Rome, Italy, and yeah, lucky guy. He's in a relationship. They're not married, and he has no kids. He shares his story of why he ended up there, does he want kids, and what fatherhood means to him. I had a lot of fun talking to Craig because he's a colleague of mine, so we had that similar bond. And he's a cool dude with a great voice. And the interesting bit for me is that he's an American living abroad. It was really good to get to hear his story. Enjoy.
Hello. How
are you?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Cool. So you're in Italy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is so cool. So are you... Okay, tell me your story.
Yeah. I'm gradually accepting that there's no escape from my own personal version of reality. And the only way forward is to work with it,
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I always wanted to live outside of the United States. I lived in Germany as a kid. My dad was in the army.
Oh, cool.
My parents didn't want to live on base and be a part of the regimented culture. So they actually rented an in-law unit from this old couple in this small town outside of the base. So my earliest memories are, I guess, I thought those were my grandparents at first. They kept explaining it to me. I think, no, that's not your grandparents, but they're really nice. So I think, and then, yeah, and then I like foreign languages and I like cultural mixing of things, not everyone having the same idea. I like being challenged to, I don't really feel normal if I'm fitting in with everybody. So I guess I kind of feel normal if I'm not like everybody else. That makes more sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So do you have kids? Are you a dad?
I don't have kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And are you married?
I was married a long time ago. I got married really young to my high school girlfriend from the Midwest. And yeah, in chiropractic school, we parted ways and amicably. And I think,
wow.
So it's interesting that the fatherhood thing came up because I'm in a relationship now with somebody who's never thought about having kids, has always thought they don't want to have kids. And yeah, it was kind of a, I always just kind of assumed, oh yeah, eventually. Yeah. But I never really critically examined it. And when I met her and we started seeing each other and it came up and she just asked me, why? What's the reason? And I didn't have a reason. It was just this, that's the people do that, Then, at first I was like, well, that's weird. But then actually taking the question seriously, it's a big deal. It's not just something you just do offhand. I mean, people do that offhand. It does happen, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's not consistent with how I like to live my life. So then I had to really, I could say that, I guess the best reason I could think of to have a kid is saying, I've benefited a lot from a lot of things. I'm blessed in a lot of ways, #blessed. And if I'm really conscious about contributing that to somebody, then, that's adding a positive value to society or to the future of humanity. And they get to enjoy even more than I got to enjoy because I can, pass that updated wisdom on. And, and on the other hand, it's not like the world needs more people. So I'm not doing a disservice if I don't end up having kids. And it's been kind of liberating to just kind of say, well, yeah, I could go either way on it now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give a little context. So my podcast, You're Doing Great Mom, is obviously about, it's more towards targeting, conversations for mothers, for women, new mothers. And what happened was I started to branch out and I started to interview women that are not mothers. And then so inside of interviewing those women, we were talking about men and just how men, because obviously men they're part of the equation. And I realized, I noticed that I wanted to hear the man's side of the story, because I've never really had these conversations with men. And I just thought it's got to be different. And and then the whole thing is a big question mark in my mind, like, I wonder what a guy would say, or I wonder how a guy feels about this. And so, women we love talking about motherhood and our children and et cetera, et cetera. And then women who are not mothers just love to talk about, we just like to talk. Yeah. And so it's just a really interesting conversation to get into this topic, like parenthood, with guys who are in whatever status, single, married, dads, non-dads. And so I really am interested if and when you started thinking about fatherhood in your life. Like, how old were you?
Oh, I would say it was really early that I started thinking about fatherhood. And that's something that once we had the discussion, through Messenger, we were chatting about setting this talk up, I started to think about it. And I realized that anytime I had like a rebellious moment where I wanted to do it some way, and my parents would say, no, not that way, or do this instead, or, because you're a little kid and sometimes you just have crazy ideas and your parents are parenting you. And if I didn't feel that I agreed with their point of view, as a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old or something, I would sort of say, oh, that's bullshit. When I grow up, I'm going to do like this with my kid, And so I guess in a way I was kind of projecting myself into the future as this theoretical father and compensating for my perceived wound as a child by assuming that the exact same situation was going to happen with this human being that didn't even exist yet. Maybe it never will. And then like doing it right, in order to like justify the universe. And, so by making that realization, I started to reclaim a lot of it, oh, well, there's some wisdom in there and I'll just apply that to myself. I'll let myself know it's okay to be like this, or it's okay for me to feel or think this way. And I don't have to do anything about it necessarily, but, I can grow up now and not wait for someone else and help them grow up,
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's just that women, we think about motherhood. All of us think about motherhood at some point, in some way, and I that was one of the biggest questions that I had for guys.
Right.
Do you ever think about fatherhood, and when did you? And was it, because a lot of girls think about it when they're, like 5, 6, under 10 years old. And the way we think about it, I think, is different than the way men think about it. I mean, for women, we think about a lot more detail,
and nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts of it, and even to the point where I think, well, at least for me personally, I always knew that I was going to have as much of I don't know if I was thinking of this at age 10, but by the time I was 15, 16, I knew I wanted to be a mother. I pretty much knew that I wanted to have as much of a natural birth as possible. I knew I wanted to breastfeed, just stuff that applies to women. And for men, it's more like, it's quite simple, just how men are. It's, am I going to be a father or not? It's kind of like that. But it's interesting what you said, how you thought a little more in depth about fatherhood. Like, well, I'm going to be doing it this way and not this way.
Yeah, I would say that was like the relationship side of it, sort of the recognizing that, there's two sides of every experience. And my role as a child right now, as a son, is to be accepting this parenting from them and doing whatever, having my response to it. and maybe they don't recognize what it seems like to me, but I can't reach them. So I'll deal with this by holding on to it for X number of decades and then unloading it on some poor unsuspecting, person down the road. I'd say I guess you're probably right about men in general. I don't really, because I would say this is evidence what you're saying. I don't really talk about fatherhood with men that haven't had children already, and then the ones that have had children, they've kind of disappeared from my social life. They are dads now, and I don't talk to them anymore. And when we do talk, it's very brief, and there's not, they're busy. So,
yeah.
But I would say that maybe I'm unusual in the sense that my father and mother both went to medical school. And so any type of thing that had to do with the human body or functions like birthing and death and illness and diet and aging, all these things, I got kind of a informed perspective on it from my parents from a very young age. And so I did think about woman giving birth, and it did seem really strange to me that everything that people talked about was sort of the first default setting was this really invasive procedure that seemed totally unnatural. And then when I would ask about it, it was like, well, that's to be safe, but then how can it be safe to like anesthetize somebody and cut them open just in case? It didn't make any sense to me as a kid, but eventually I just sort of accepted it, okay, that's what it is. I don't know. And then obviously once I got into chiropractic school and started learning more about obstetrics and gynecology and all that, I thought, okay, well, there is another point of view on this stuff. And it seems totally valid. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting that that I think that is unusual that you thought of that aspect of it, because I don't know. I suspect that most men, I don't know. I can't answer for guys. Like, do they think about that sort of thing? Obviously, because, well, that's interesting that your parents were both in the medical field. We can go another route and be like, wow, they're both medical doctors?
My mom has a master's in cellular biology or biochem. Yeah. So she did research and she did research. At first she worked in some kind of lab where she was doing experiments on animals. And then when she conceived me, she said she didn't want to be doing that anymore. So she stopped, and then she like rescued animals from labs and stuff.
Aww.
And then she did research. She was doing research in human aging. So she's actually published a paper on gerontology. My dad's a neurologist and a sleep medicine doctor.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And okay, well, we'll get to that later, because I'm like, my next question is, how did you get into chiropractic? Yeah. Okay, well, we'll go into that, because that's pretty interesting, pretty cool. But back to what I was going with.
Yeah, I would say that. Unfortunately, that's, I think, largely correct, because it's, not to bring up words that don't necessarily have a fixed meaning, but masculinity. It's if I contemplate, the womb and what it's like to be a mother and what it's like to conceive and gestate a baby and give birth, and that's going outside the man zone. And I think it's very nebulous for a lot of men. There's so many layers of veils that they have never seen beyond, and each one approaching it to consider pulling it back is like, feels threatening to your man card, I guess. And I just was doing this. This was just how I grew up. So I'd never thought of it that way. And then when I hit puberty and started trying to relate to females, in that way, then I started to feel the conflict of it. Like, wait, now I don't think the way that all these other people seem to think. And, what does that mean about me? And I'm really glad that I lived life that way. I think that it's given me a really more complete perspective on a lot of things. But yeah, I think men kind of unconsciously and consciously alienate themselves from it in order to not overcomplicate their emotional life. Yeah.
I agree. In my experience, when I meet a guy who his wife is pregnant with their first child, they kind of look stunned. They're a little they're a little like it's just you can just see something in their eyes about like it's like I have no idea, like I don't know what's happening, and
Yeah.
and it seemed to
Yeah.
me like it just seemed it like with the guys that I've met, and even friends that I've been friends with in my 20s, and then like we've followed each other's lives, and then they get married, and then their wife is pregnant. It's they only really start thinking of it in that way when they find out that she's pregnant. So it's quite isolating in my view, like that. It just seems like men, it's very, very individual, and there's not much, like you said, you don't talk to guys that much about fatherhood or and like you just said that the friends that you have that became fathers, like, yeah, it's quite isolating, isn't it?
Yes, I think that the lack of, yeah, like you're saying, that shock stun factor, I think, it's like a lot of things, like people going, let's say, to use a hyper masculine analogy here, somebody going to war, right? When you're 18 and your picture of masculinity is, I'm a strong person, I can defend myself, I can defend others, I can attack people if they're in the wrong. It's my role as a soldier to do my duty or whatever. And you have this kind of glorified picture of it. And I've never been to war, I've never been a soldier, but I imagine obviously nothing can prepare you for the reality of it. They would go,
Yeah.
People are actually shooting at each other and I'm terrified. And then that's not going to stop for a year or two. Like then you go into this kind of state of just like, how do I even, and I'm loath to draw the analogy with something so magical as the beginning of life and bringing a person into the world. It's the exact opposite of that. But I think for guys, there's just a complete, there isn't like I want to use Italian right here, reso conto. They're not like, they're not counting up all the ways in which that's going to be real. And then when it becomes real, it's all at once and they don't have a frame of reference on it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a very clear difference, I think, in general. I mean, like you seem to have thought, well, because of your profession, well, our profession, chiropractic, and having the parents that you had being, it's all about the body. So in a sense, yeah, that is unusual for you to think about the biology or the process of pregnancy and stuff like that. I really don't think a lot of guys think of it that way.
Yeah, I don't think that I agree with you. I think you're right.
Yeah. So getting to know you a little bit more. So you're not a father, and you were saying that you were married before when you were younger.
Yeah. I married my girlfriend from high school, and I was 23. I just turned 23 when we got married, and it had been a really long-term relationship, like 8 years when we got married, and and then as I grew up and went to chiropractic, went to a lot of different things. I did a lot of different education things and worked a lot of different jobs, and when I was in chiropractic school, I sort of got to a point where I felt like I needed to live my own life, that I'd been sort of putting it on hold for some reason. And, that's a long time ago now, several years back. So my perspective on it now is sort of different than it was then. And so we separated, and 2 years later divorced, and we'd talked about having kids. We said, definitely after 30. And then it was definitely after you're done with chiropractic school, and then I was in chiropractic school, I was approaching 30, and we started to end the relationship. So then I thought, well, obviously I'm not thinking about kids anymore right now. I just want to finish this graduate school program and figure out how I'm going to start a business and, support myself financially. And that the kids became the last thing on my mind. And then I got into another relationship eventually, and we talked about it, but again, it was later. We're going to do that later. And then my current relationship, which I'm really happy in, the very beginning, I realized, well, as a man looking at women, one of the things that's always really been sort of the dividing line between someone I'm really interested in, someone I'm not interested in is this a woman who, in a sticky situation is going to stand up and speak her mind, or is it someone who's going to go with the flow, even if it's against her integrity? And so all the women that I've been really attracted to, I felt like they had a really clear perspective on what they wanted and what they didn't want. And this woman, I looked at her and was like, this would be a kick-ass mom. Like, I just felt that about her, like if some shit was on the line, like I could count on her to throw down if I wasn't around, And also she's going to challenge me if I'm going into my bullshit. Like, she's not going to put up with it, So I'm less in danger of fucking up my kids with her on my side, but she's someone who's always thought she wouldn't want to have children. So that was a really interesting conversation. And she kind of challenged me to explain why I wanted them. And then I started critically examining that sort of emotional default setting for the first time. And it was really freeing experience. It was challenging at first, but I realized I didn't have a lot of my reasons for wanting to have kids were about me and wanting to resolve something or answer some question or feel like a good person. And not a lot of them were about this potential child and what it was going to be in it for them. And she was kind of, one of the common critiques was, well, that's really selfish what you're saying. And well, I guess, yeah, from that perspective it's true, so, it's been nice. I've been really enjoying the after effect of that process of consideration and talking, because I feel freer about it now. If we get to a point in the future where we do decide to have kids, I'll feel really complete in that decision, and not like I'm just doing something because I'm supposed to do it or making like a knee-jerk reflex to life. And if we don't have kids ever, then I'll feel like okay with that, instead of feeling like there's something missing that I didn't do that I wanted to do, because I sort of taken it out of this just, oh yeah, I should do that, to this a choice actually. Yeah.
So what did she say about like her reasonings? Because I think I find it interesting that she asked you or challenged your views or your your tendency to want to be a father. And did she give you an explanation about why she didn't want children?
Yeah. And so she's from a different background than me and has a different way of thinking, and which I really enjoy. And her, basically, to sum it up, it's, motherhood is hardcore. Having a baby is hardcore. It's a risky business. The baby might not be healthy. I might not end up healthy. It's a serious investment in time and energy, and it locks me down in ways, because she's someone who's always traveled and been around the world, and she likes to enjoy life. And it's, of course I'm not saying you can't enjoy life if you have kids. It's obviously not true, but you do have to start prioritizing another person. And she takes it seriously that she's like, I'm not going to have a kid and not prioritize them. And I don't know if I'm willing to make that exchange without knowing the payoff. Like, they might end up hating me, and I just spent a lot of time, energy, and money on them, and now I missed out on 10 years of freedom,
Yeah. Is she the same age as you?
Yeah, she is. I'm 35 and she's 36.
Okay. It's I don't know if this is a coincidence or whatever. I mean, it's neither here nor there. It's I don't know if you know that Italy apparently is one of the populations that is actually decreasing, because a lot of women are not having children.
Yeah, the population is definitely decreasing also. Yeah, there's the Italians aren't getting together and having children. They're staying single into their 40s and 50s even, and they're staying with their parents. And the ones that are young and going places, they leave the country and look for work elsewhere in the UK and America and Australia, New Zealand, anywhere else. And so
what's your experience like? Well, you've been there for 2 years. What is your experience like? What's going on? I mean, Rome is a huge city. I was just there for the first time ever, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't see that many pregnant women. I don't think I saw even one pregnant woman. And I
you
saw
were in the center too, probably, right? You were in the historic center.
Yeah.
So most of the Italians that are Italians, Romans from Rome, if they own property in the center, they make money from it using Airbnb or vacation rentals, or even long-term rentals to expats who work here. The Romans and Italians live in the outskirts of the city in these big residential neighborhoods with giant apartment buildings and shopping centers. And so out there, you occasionally see pregnancy and you see people with kids and pushing strollers and stuff, but it's not at all the norm. It's definitely a minority of people, but I live in Trastevere right now, which is like Disneyland for tourists. But just the other day I had to walk around this big family of Romans. They're speaking Roman dialect, and there was 5 kids of varying ages with them. They're walking slow and taking up the whole damn alley. I was in a rush, get out of my way, but
it's funny because in Paris, my sister lived in Paris and I lived in Paris. In Paris, it's like every other woman is pregnant, and you see so many kids, so many babies, kids, mothers pushing a stroller. It's just the difference is enormous.
Yeah, I think probably a lot of it is what we're talking about, the economic situation. I think in Paris, there's a really good supportive healthcare system. There's a really good supportive process for birthing. And, people feel like their kids maybe going to have a job when they grow up. In Italy, if I have a kid here, if they get a job, it's going to be leaving the country. And they're so family oriented that's, I talked to a few older people that are in their 60s or 50s that have kids that are in their 20s or 30s, and almost all of them, the ones that talk to me, are sort of interested in other things because I'm this American chiropractor. Conversation goes beyond what? Huh? Oh, all right, cool. Then I find out, their kids in San Francisco working as a sports medicine doctor, or their kids in, doing startups in London. And it's like, okay. So it sounds like then their kids sound like people that I would have related to in San Francisco, that crowd. It's like, there's not really lines between people in my generation anymore. If you're educated, I think, and it's globalizing is making us all very similar.
Yeah, that's really, it's kind of weird. I don't know. It's just and also it's Japan as well. Women are not, people are not getting married until later on.
Yeah.
And then they're not really interested in having children.
Yeah. Like rental boyfriend services and
it's just so weird. And then even like Germany, there's a lot of women are not having children, so there's a lot of these developed countries. It's like the whole thing, like there's just been a lot of articles in different publications and about this whole phenomenon, this whole thing about people just not getting married and having children, or just not having children. Like some people might not get married, but they might still have children, but they're just not having children. I mean, even I think in the UK, it's 1.8 children per, on average. So yeah, it's going down. But anyway, like do you think that like men think about their father, like if, let's say they don't want to have children or they're not sure, or it's not like a big thought process in their mind. Do you think that, do you guys think about their fathers? Cause your biggest influence is, I think, your dad.
Yeah. In the sense of becoming a father and thinking about my own or.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would be if I did have a kid, I'd be similar to my dad in that my dad was born in New Orleans. And then when he was 4, the family moved to Iran.
Oh, wow.
And he lived in Iran till he was 16 when he went back to college in the United States. And yeah, so I didn't realize, when I was 9, my family moved to Iowa. And so I went through puberty and adolescence in Iowa.
Yeah. I'm sorry that just as an American, like I've got some people, sorry, I just interrupted you, but like people who listen to some listeners are not from America, but we're both Americans.
Okay, yeah.
And like we're both Americans, and I'm thinking Iowa, like,
yeah.
But I was just the one question I just popped up in my head earlier. Are your parents American?
Yeah, both my parents are American. Yeah.
And why did your dad's family move to Iran?
My grandfather was an engineer. Most of the men on my dad's male lineage were engineers until my dad decided to break the mold with biomedical engineering and become an MD. So he had a job with one of the oil companies, I think, so they worked in Iran with the petroleum industry.
Oh,
yeah.
Holy, that is very unique.
Yeah.
You don't hear that kind of story often.
Yeah, no, it's not that frequent, I guess. There's only a few people that did it. And it was
Is your dad how old is your dad?
Let's see, I'm 35. My dad just turned 60.
Oh, he's really young.
Yeah. Yeah. Our birthday is like 3 days apart, and he was 25 when I was born, so it's easy to.
Wow. Do you have any siblings?
I have one younger brother. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And is he a dad? What's his story?
He's not a dad. He's hold on a second, 87. Yeah. So he's 30 this year.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, he's not a dad. He lives and works in Phoenix, Arizona.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And cool. Yeah. Yeah.
And your parents where are they now?
My parents still live and work in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. My mom did a lot of politics and activism and had a business for a long time as a home computer consultant, where she would teach people how to use, this is when things were new. People didn't know how computers worked. I remember telling me a story about explaining to somebody that you could put a folder inside of a folder in the world of computers. Like, that doesn't work. You put the folder in there and it's not going to fit right. Yeah. And now she owns a coffee shop. She's a business owner like me. And yeah, my dad is senior partner neurologist at a private independent association of physicians that do their own outpatient work and contract with hospitals for inpatient work. And he started sleep medicine in Iowa, basically. So yeah, it's, they're inspiring people.
And are you close to them? Do you get to see them often, or?
Yeah. Now that I live out here, I see them once or twice a year. They came out here last Christmas. In the summertime, I went back to Iowa. One of my old friends from high school was getting married. And so I went back and stayed with them and visited and, introduced the girlfriend and all that stuff. And this Christmas, I'm actually going to Japan on Friday to meet my girlfriend for a 2-week whirlwind trip of Japan. That's going to be a blast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Was she's in Japan right now?
She's in Australia. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
just for what is she doing in Australia?
She's a pilot, and she has lady pilot friends that live in Perth, and she's with them. And
Oh, cool.
today they went to the island that has all those crazy cute marsupials on it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just saw oh my God, this is like totally random. I just saw this video on the BBC website. There's like in North Queensland, there's like this infestation of bats, and it's like crazy. They had this video. It was just this crazy thing with bats. Anyway, I just thought that was
cool.
Yeah, no, it was pretty crazy. But Perth is more south.
It's on the west coast.
On the
I'm not sure about
southwest,
the north south
Mm-hmm.
of it.
And
right.
So you guys are going to be in Japan.
Yeah. I fly to Tokyo Friday morning.
Wow. Have you been? Is this your first time going?
It is my first time going. Yeah.
It's so cool. Do you like Japanese food?
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know if like is a strong enough word. I love Japanese food. Like I've learned to eat dakimasu, itadakimasu, and
oh my gosh. I'm half Japanese.
Yeah, I sort of assume so from your name, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, not many people make that connection. They don't really know what that is. But if you understand, or if you are familiar with Japanese culture, you would know, that's Japan. Shiozawa is a Japanese name. Oh my God. You're not going to want to leave. You're not going to want to come home.
We've already joked about, let's just move there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you just staying in Tokyo?
No, I fly to Tokyo, and then we immediately get on a plane and fly up north towards Sapporo. And we spend a week in Niseko in Hokkaido snowboarding. And then we're going to we have 3 days with nothing scheduled. We're just going to get the rail pass and do whatever we want on the way down to Tokyo, or I think we have 3 or 4 nights in Tokyo, and then fly out from Tokyo back to Rome.
That is so sweet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, it's mind blowing. If for people who love or just generally like Japanese food, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
It's such an amazing experience.
Yeah. Yes. I love Japanese food. I make sushi all the time at home.
Do you?
Yeah. I found finally like where all of the Asian grocery stores are in Rome. And so about once or twice a month, I like take the journey and I bring the backpack and I carry home like 10 kilograms of rice noodles and chili sauce. And I really like it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous.
It's funny that actually I realized this year, I think Mr. Miyagi is the reason I became a chiropractor, if I really think about it, because that was the first time. This is really corny, but I was watching The Karate Kid. Daniel's son like hurts his knee or his leg or something.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Miyagi does Reiki, basically, I think. He claps his hands and lays them on, and he's magically better. And I was just blown away by that as a kid. And I asked everyone about it. And what I uncovered was, it's just a movie, but there is stuff like that. And there are these, kind of internal energy people that can help people heal. And I was like, what? This blows a whole lid off my version of reality. Like the other path of understanding and skill available. And like, why aren't we all doing that? Why are you people taking aspirin all the fucking time?
Yep.
And so that basically started a lifelong fascination with subtle energy experiences in the body, I guess. And that led me eventually to chiropractic.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
That was I was curious about that. How did you get into chiropractic?
Yeah. So Mr. Japan, it's American, Hollywood's version of Japanese people is what got me. That's oversimplification, but
yeah. Oh, but that's so cool. That's really, that's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that you could talk to anybody, on either side of, like just in the span of 2 decades, on either side of you, that where it's like everyone, they're going to know if if you say some kind of line from that movie, people are going to know what it is, wax on, wax off kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So like back on the subject.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and it's just interesting only because, with women, because, we have a clock, and, for the most part, when a woman wants to have children, once she's in her early, to mid 30s, it's like the pressure is really, really high.
Yeah.
Whereas for men, I'm thinking about this because I'm thinking about your situation. You are at an age where for men, it's kind of like you meet a woman who says, I don't want to have children. And what's interesting to me is like, you're going with the flow with it. Like it doesn't like your urge to have children is not strong enough where it's a deal breaker. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Whereas, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. It's an interesting consideration. Well, what I found out about myself is I was hesitant to have kids. I think that's part of the reason why I didn't, because I was in a situation where easily we could have just done it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We didn't. We had logical, analytical mind reasons not to, but fundamentally that's not how people make decisions. They either want to do something or they don't. And if they want to do it, no matter what they say, that's what they end up doing. And for the most part, anyways. Like we said, all these things about how we'll wait and do that later, but what we're really doing is not having kids.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so, because you totally could have. I mean, I know of a guy who he got married really young and was going with the flow, and she was a little bit older than him and really wanted to have children.
Yeah.
And so they had a child, but then like, because he thinks it's because he was just too young and she was much older, and just whatever circumstances, they ended up splitting up. And he said that, if he didn't have this child, he still doesn't really know if he would even want children, like he's, he loves his child, but it's like his urge to have children. It wasn't really like something that motivated him to,
it gets into some really weird stuff, I think, because, in the past, having kids was this unquestioned necessity and or duty of people to do. And, need more bodies for this and that, and need population for this project, and whatever the reason was, or, be fruitful and multiply because you're a Christian. So I think it went underneath critical thinking, and it went over critical thinking. It said, you have a God-given purpose, and also it's just nature. Don't try to fight it. It's bigger than you. And so people just went with it. And then staying together and raising kids, again, it wasn't about them and what they wanted to do. And so I think there's this huge divide between the older generations and more current generations, because more current generations, it seems self-evident to be thinking about yourself and what you really want to do. And the older generation thinks like, how could you be so selfish and short-sighted? What you want changes, and you don't know what you want, and you want different things, but this will remain the same, and you should always do this, and this is your duty in life. And so it's like that conversation can't even really happen effectively. And I think people, I think it's maybe I don't know how common this is. I think it's more common than I thought. I thought I was weird about me. When I was younger, like I had a dream that turned me on so much where my girlfriend was pregnant with my child, and I woke up in a cold sweat because I was terrified. I was like, oh, I'm in high school. I have a life ahead of me. Like, oh God, no. But also I couldn't deny, like, that was really a turn on for me. And I've
Yeah.
spoken to, I have a friend here who's a lesbian, and I admitted this to her, that the idea of getting a woman pregnant is really erotic. And
Huh.
she said, oh yeah, you're not the first straight man to admit that to me, you know? So I got the sense like that there's other straight men out there that feel this way, and they don't ever tell anyone except their lesbian friends, you know? We don't even say it to each other. Um, so I think if I was when I was younger, if my significant other had really been dead set on having a baby and was trying her darndest to convince me to go along with that in the moment, I can't see myself really shutting it down. You know, I probably would have gone along with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think, and then it's, you know, not to, I don't want to, I have no idea who this person is you're talking about, but probably there's different parts of them that wanted different things. And then, you know, then they kind of all, when you try to bring it all together, you know, and try to be yourself, if there's a part of you that's really out of integrity, a part of you that's not, and a part of you that you did something for some other reason besides yourself, you start to get farther and farther away from feeling very present in your own life. And that's when trouble really starts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, there's so much that you said that, that I can ask about. But the one thing about how I really do think you're right, how men, it's a turn on. It's a, I mean, it's normal. I think it's a very natural thing to understand or to happen, where, you know, your sperm is strong enough to, like, that is totally, it's all about procreation. And I mean,
Yeah.
I remember, like, my husband, it's almost like there's something about himself that was, it's like he puffed out his chest more or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it definitely, I think psycho-emotionally also, it's really arousing when a woman really wants you, you know,
Yeah.
when she will move mountains to be with you. Like when you see that she wants you that much. And of course, I think on some visceral level, we understand how serious having a baby is. Like it gets in there when you're a kid and you see movies and there's women screaming in agony when they're giving birth and they're throwing up because of morning sickness. Like there's those cultural memes that you get exposed to. And so everyone kind of understands, oh, that's a big deal. And if there is a real live flesh and blood woman who wants your baby, you know, you can't help but connect that, like, oh, she really seriously is into me, you know, and
Yeah.
very confident. You feel very good about yourself then too. It's really seductive feeling to feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these are definite instincts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that are into play, and those instincts are so strong. And yeah, it's so funny, that whole masculine feminine dance, it's my husband's, he's British, and he loves to joke and I don't know, his type of humor is very, it's just not like, it's not really, it's very British, it's very dry.
Right.
But anyway, like, one of the things he says, we love to talk about the whole differences between men and women, and because he's very masculine, and we always like just joke about the differences. And so he says, like, oh, with if you can have as many of these with one of those. So if you're talking to a woman, you can have as many of these, pointing to, his parts, when you have one of those. It's kind of like, women can be much more, females are much more selective in the animal kingdom.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think on an instinctive level, it ties back to what you were saying, where
Feeling valuable.
Yeah. Like it feeds the male, the male drive or the ego or, just that instinct if you're chosen by a woman. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think it all goes back to instincts.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I think that a big part of the driver is instinct and, millions of years of, I guess as chiropractors, we would say innate brain or something. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Bases with, with philosophy, but it definitely is like, there's the small part of you that thinks it's the driver of life. And then like, the gorilla in the semi truck behind it, like, go ahead. Yeah. Put the blinker on. Why don't you?
Yeah. I mean, the difference, it's like, you've got the instinctive animal. We have that. And then we have got the human consciousness, the human.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's those
sort
two
of
things.
Disembodied.
Yeah. So cool. Well, Craig, this has been really great talking to you. Thank you for, sharing who you are and your family and just your point of view about fatherhood. I really appreciate it.
Wow. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this.
If you want to check out more information about Craig and his Network Spinal Chiropractic practice in Rome, go to his website, chiropracticuniversal.com. That's chiropractic, universal with an E at the end.com. Also, if you want to learn more about how Network Spinal Chiropractic can help you and how you can find a practitioner, go to epienergetics.com. That's epienergetics.com. Stay tuned for the next episode where I continue this series chatting with men about fatherhood. And please, I would really appreciate it if you wrote a review and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.